Hi, it's Sandra from Create in Spain. I apologise if this video isn't that bright. It is very early in the morning and I'm relying on artificial light here. Okay, so I made a video yesterday of how to use these battery operated fairy lights that I've got, and you can just see the bulbs on there. How to actually use them in the way of separating them and preparing them for use in card making. I did that yesterday. I will, oh excuse me, foggy throat here. I will put a link to that below so that you can see what I'm talking about. And today I wanted to show you how they are actually used within a card. Now, I have a card base here that I have, or a front panel base, this isn't actually attached to a card yet, that I have done, and I have the beginnings of the front of my card, which is this here. Now, it's not fully decorated yet, but this is just to give you an idea of what result you will get. If I press in the right place, you get the thing lighting up, and it's actually quite a bright light. Okay, so how do you actually construct the circuit? Well, there are several different ways. You can buy kits to construct circuits. You can do it with tin foil from the kitchen. You can buy copper tape, etc. But as it happened, I just remembered I had this in my stash. Very strange thing you might think to have in my stash, but I had been making wobble cards and I used this copper wire for that. I just said to my hubby, do you happen to have any copper wire down the basement? He said, oh, I might have a bit somewhere. And he stripped it down for me. So I've got this in my stash. And of course it happens to be copper wire. So I thought, this would be nice and easy. So what I did was I took my individual LED light and the two wires that it was left with after I prepared it, see the previous video link, I attached just by winding together some extra copper wire on both sides. Now when you make a circuit, you have to have one side of the wire going to the positive side and the other side going to the negative side of a battery. So this wire here runs underneath my battery, and this wire here from the other side of the LED runs to the top of the battery. Now do check which side you're taping down before you do it permanently, because you don't want to have it so that they're run the wrong way and your light doesn't work. So, because I don't want this to be on all the time, and excuse me, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. There we go. Because I don't want to have it on all the time, I obviously need to have a switch of some description. Now frequently people put a switch over the over the battery. I didn't want to do that from a point of view of adding any bulk to it. I wanted it elsewhere. And I designed the file so that it had a hole in the front on the bottom right hand corner. Now when I made this card base, what I did was I cut it out, but I'd copied the design of the front of the card onto the back just using a pen, an empty pen, to just slightly put the image into the background for me. So I knew where my presser was going to be, I knew where the decoration was, where I wanted the lamp to be, and so on and so forth. And so what I've done is I've taped it down so that I've got a little bit of foam tape underneath the wire, because this wire here is taped down to the back of the card. This wire crosses over it like a little bridge, but you don't want it to contact permanently. So it's stuck to this raised bit of foam, and it's got another raised bit of foam under it there. And I don't know if you can see, if I turn it sideways, it's got about 2 millimeters clearance. So it's not going to accidentally touch the circuit. It's going to stay open until I want it to be closed. Right, now regarding the positioning of the bulb, I have here another one of these things. Now what I did, you probably can't see it, but I've got the outline of the bulb here, my little bauble. And what I did was I just put that underneath and worked out where my wire was going to go so that it would be pretty much hidden by the design. Okay, and then I just slid it out. Now this is actually on acetate, so there's acetate on the back of here and the card decal is merely stuck on the front, so that's very easy to do. So it's in the right place, I've got my battery, I've got my switch worked out on this side. I need to work out the switch on the front. Now that's really easy. I cut out, as I said, a circle in the front here, and I cut out a very slightly larger circle. One was 1.5 centimeters, and this one here is 2 centimeters. And this is a button basically, and I've put a piece of foam on the back of the button. So it says press, and so when the card is put together eventually and I press on there, it's going to light up. Ta-da! There we go. The foam on the back allows this to actually make contact, or allows the two wires to make contact, I should say, because if you don't put that foam on the back of it, you can't depress the front of the card enough to move that wire to touch the other wire, and that's what closes the circuit and therefore it switches the lamp on. Alright, just a word about batteries. You can get various sorts of batteries. I have, here we go. Here's a Philips one, but it's actually thicker, it's more bulky. And I have found I could get these relatively cheaply. I think they were something like 60 cents each or whatever. And these are CR2016, and they are much, much thinner. And that means that I can have the card itself much thinner than I would otherwise. This is just one thin layer of craft foam that I've put around the edge. Now about the craft foam, I've adhered this with acrylic varnish. Did the job brilliantly, I just left it to dry overnight. Okay, I didn't have to leave it to dry overnight, I just happened to do it late last night, so that's how I did it. But if you're going to put your wires on this base card, I would advise putting your foam around the outside of the card first, because it's very easy to forget that you need to leave a border and to put something under where the border needs to be, basically. So I would advise doing that first. And I've just cut these down into very thin strips using my guillotine. And it's just normal cheapo craft foam that is only about 1 millimeter or so thick. This one is slightly thicker, but that is still a very, very light card base. It is nowhere near as heavy as they generally are. So I'm going to do some extra work on this one, and then I will show you what the finished card ends up looking like. I will link the file, and I will make sure that I put in all the various details about where I've put this, just so you get a starting point and you can follow it if you need to. Okay, see you in a minute. So here is the finished card. I have kept it very simple. I've kept it pretty much in two colours, a pale blue and silver. I've added some little sparkle splatters to the card, and on the outer edge, I don't know if you can see this on camera, I added some thin lines with a silver Signo pen, and then I just did like half heart shapes almost, going one side and then the other, just as a little decorative border around the edge. Now I've added a very pale blue organza bow that I've made, and the sentiment is "It's time to sparkle." You can't easily see that on camera. It's done with a silver vinyl, which is a very high quality vinyl, and I kiss cut it onto acetate, and it just cut so beautifully. It was a wonder. And I gave it an offset and then cut through the acetate on the outside. So that's it, it's finished. And if I just put my blind down, so it gets all dark in here. Now you can see how well that lights up in the dark. That is amazing. So I hope you have fun with it. Do check out the other video that gives you tips on how to use the LEDs, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.